Hello, it is Thursday the 18th of July. I hope everyone's doing okay. We're going to take a look at crypto, but there are stuff going on in bigger markets that are making things pretty uncertain and pretty volatile that we should talk about. So in stock markets, it's quite a crazy week. Yesterday, the Nasdaq had its biggest down day in 2.5 years. A lot of that was driven by tech and what's going on with China and politicians. Market is adjusting to the chances that it's more likely to be Trump than Biden as the next president, and President Trump doesn't like China very much. There were, even President Biden, the language against China really hurt the AI and chip market. Yesterday, President Biden said he needs to tighten controls on chips. President Trump says Taiwan needs to pay for its defense. The end result, and remember, an awful lot of our chips are built in Taiwan. The end result was 12% down in ASML, 9% down in Qualcomm, 8% down in Broadcom, and 6.6% down in one day in Nvidia. And so that has dragged big indexes down. I think a lot of it is rotation because, the last couple of weeks, the Russell, which is the US small caps, are up 12%. Like, that's an unheard of move. The Dow Jones is still going up. And so we're seeing some really kind of weird rotation moves and levitation almost in crypto markets. So whilst we've had really nice rallies in big blue chips like Bitcoin and ETH, Ripple leading the way has been really quite something. So we'll take a look at that. I get a lot of questions at the moment. Do I really think this is still a correction in Bitcoin? Do I still think we're going to see a fifth wave higher? Is there going to be another altcoin season? And so on. So we'll talk about that today. Let's start then with Big Daddy. We'll start with Bitcoin. Do I think that we are still in a correction? Absolutely, I do. Markets have three directions. They have up, down, and sideways. If we look at this daily chart, here we can see example that this is a down market, this is an up market, and here we are in a sideways market. If, Bitcoin does this a lot, and this third direction, people need to remember, is that still trending on lower time frames? Yes. But whilst we're in these bigger corrections, and you can see them really clearly when a market is trending, you can see here we make a swing high and we go sideways, and these pullbacks never come into the previous swing. We keep trending, and we see the same in a downtrending market. We see a swing, a correction. These swings don't overlap each other. As soon as you get into these choppy overlapping waves, the most likely pattern that we are seeing is a correction. And that's really what I think we have seen since March. Did we get up here quite fast? Yes, we did. But we also, from last April until August, in 2023, we did a very similar correction. This is, so we really started a month early. Does this mean that we're going to end this correction a month early? Maybe. These patterns do repeat in terms of timing. I know I've talked about this a lot, but when we look at the bull runs, they do tend to be equal. If we're still in a bull run here in Bitcoin, which I think we are, this for me, in terms of timing, should last for at least another 1.5 years to October 2025. If this bull run lasts the same distance as the last two, which were 152 weeks. So no, I don't think this is over. I think this is clearly a correction in an uptrend. If we take a look at this Bitcoin chart, let's go to the weekly chart here. And if instead of candlesticks, if we put a line chart on, sometimes you can see it really obviously, these three wave corrections. And I know I talk about them all the time. So when we're in a downtrend, we see a big move, three wave correction, continue lower. Here we're in an uptrend, three wave correction, continue higher. I think there is a possibility, let's go back to candlesticks. I think that there is a possibility that because this is a bigger pattern, that we're in a bigger wave 4. And sometimes these go into 5-wave wedges. So instead of just being a simple, let's draw it. Instead of just being a simple kind of 3-wave correction, what you will tend to see is 5 waves in the correction. So there is a bit of a risk of that. I often think there's a time relationship between these corrections. So for example, if we measure how long this correction took exactly, we can kind of, if we do the same again, we can kind of see where this is likely to end. And we'll go from this high. Remember, this is a weekly chart. And this is, yeah, week of 12th of August. So I can see us getting up here, having a little bit of a pullback, and then breaking out of this pattern around then. You know, there is no guarantee, but is this still a corrective pattern? Yes. So right now, if we go back to our daily chart of where we are and our moving averages and our weekly chart, our weekly 20 moving averages gone flat and our daily moving averages are flat and bunched up. That means we are in the middle of this correction going sideways. What I'm not sure is, you know, especially with a big correction like this, I use fib levels for support and resistance to see kind of where we are. And so if we do that here, for me, we have paused. I was thinking we would pause at this 50% level in the middle and maybe see a bigger pullback. Instead, we have paused at the 61.8. So I measured from this high to this low. We've paused at the 61.8. That means that this 50% should be support if we're going to keep going higher, and this daily 50 moving average should. But if it doesn't, it means that we will see a bigger pullback and to this 38.2, and that's very common. This is called the golden ratio zone in the middle here, and this 50% becomes a pivot. If we're going to keep going lower, we'll see something like that. Also, you know, if we do that bigger pullback in this range and we get above it, I look for this 50% to be support and so on. Sometimes you can go back and forward a couple of times in this 61.8, 38.2 zone. So what we can say pretty clearly here is that we are in the middle of right in the middle really, of a big corrective pattern in a bullish trend. I expect this to resolve higher and another leg higher. This is just honestly for now a correction. So that means we see 63,500 as key support. A daily close underneath that would see a bigger pullback to 61,200, which is where our daily 20 moving average is. We could even come back and do a bigger retest of this daily 200 moving average. But I think that for me would be a pullback in an uptrend, and I think, you know, when you've got a correction like this, you just keep buying dips. So how do I do that? Well, for me, you know, I put on Heiken Ashi. I look for, I think for simple moving averages, this is such a great tool. For example, if I was to look at the Heiken Ashi on this here, would I want to buy it here for a big swing and new highs? No, we've had like 6 days of green up days in a row. I would really like to see a few days of red. Pull back here to buy some more. Does that mean if you're holding someone, you're hodling or building position, you should dump it? Not necessarily. If you're trading this short term and we go red, then you might want to think about lightening up or maybe getting rid of some leverage. We really, you know, in the middle of a big, I always say don't diddle in the middle, but the middle of a big corrective pattern like this can be quite choppy, and it can make you, you know, change your mind from one day to the next, whether the world is ending or everything's going to be fine. So that's really where we are in Bitcoin, and this next pullback I think will be a really nice long entry. I think especially if we can see it clearly defined in 3 little waves, I think it'll be a really nice buy on a lower time frame. ETH is doing the same. If we look at ETH here on the weekly chart, we are in the middle of a big consolidation pattern, clearly with choppy overlapping sideways. This is a corrective pattern because we are coiling up. So it's a triangle or a pennant, if you like. Within this pattern, it's very common to see 5 waves. It wouldn't be weird to see something like that. And 5 waves, especially as these previous corrections were, this previous correction was quite a simple 3-wave pattern. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that in ETH. Do I think this is the high? No, I don't. If I put my big swing fib levels on from here to here, and I look at where we are, I think if we fail to get above 4,000, we could see a bigger correction. And one thing about these pennant patterns is if they fail, they become bullish flags. So that's the difference, a bullish pennant and a bullish flag. If you break to the downside, especially when it's still in an uptrend, these chopping, we will see a bigger bullish flag pattern. If we were to do that, we'd be kind of looking for a marginal new low down here. I don't think we are at the moment. One thing that does make me a little bit worried, so the spot ETFs for Ethereum are due to start trading next week. I kind of wanted to see a bigger pullback in ETH before that happened, because I don't think that if I was, building a position in ETF, I'd want to buy a market that's all at new all-time highs. I'd like to see a little bit of a pullback to encourage people, and then when it starts going up again, everybody will start chasing it. So burned in my memory, of course, is the launch of the Bitcoin CME futures, where we had a massive bull run into the launch. Everybody was expecting it, and then when it launched, it sold off. So there's a little bit of a risk in that in ETH. Let's see how we go from there. So short term, we are in the middle of a sideways correction pattern in ETH. Just like Bitcoin, we don't want to buy breakouts in the middle of a pattern like this. We really want to buy pullbacks. If I put my Heikin on, here we are exactly in the middle, held underneath the daily 50 moving average. At this point, I think it is more likely to see a pullback than not. I would really like in this one to see maybe some kind of inverted head and shoulders pattern. So that would be quite a bullish look, wouldn't it, for a pullback? And if we were to make a symmetrical one, we could come back towards 3,200 in this swing low here. So 3 waves back here for me would be a really nice long entry for ETH as we head into the ETF launch next week. But remember, these are really odd markets at the moment. I think that volatility is increasing, and so it's really important that you kind of pay attention to your positions and don't let stuff get out of hand. So talking about weirdness, we've seen a really strong move higher in Ripple. Quite extraordinary when you think about it. Let's go to the weekly though and take a look at big picture where we are. Because in Ripple, I always thought, I have some people in my group who are still quite big holders of Ripple. And so let's talk about, and we always said that this 886 fib level at 0.38, we were looking for it to be important support. And we are going up again in an uptrend above 0.71. But in between, really, we're in no man's land. And this is our kind of range boundaries. If I go out on the monthly, I see some people talking about what we're doing here in Ripple as a giant pennant. And it's true with trend lines that if we connect these lows here, so if I connect these lows, what we've got 1, 2, 3, this was a pretty nice fourth touch that held here. And if we look at the upside and we go all the way to the highs, I'm not a kind of fan of this angle, but let's draw it like this. Someone said, look, this is Ripple on the verge of breaking out, and this false breakout here, third touch false breakout, is a reversal. I have to say, when you've got an angle like this, you do not want an angle like that. It's going to be more like this, but I can see what people are looking at. Either way, so whether it's trend line resistance, whether it's moving averages, we're at a little bit of a tough level here in the middle of a sideways range. In terms of moving averages, it's our weekly 200 moving average, which has previously, if we look left over the past year, since January, been really important support and resistance. So a close above this, which is at 0.59, would signal that we are on our way to the back of the top of the range. And the first time back to these moving averages, it is likely to be a little bit bumpy and volatile. Do fib levels help us in Ripple with where we are and how much we are likely to pull back? Well, when I draw them, I'm going to do first off this most recent swing from high to low, and I'm going to look at, did the market respect these fib levels? And when I look at the 236 fib, I have to say it doesn't look very encouraging. So let's go to this bigger swing and see where we are with these bigger fib levels, and there isn't really very much there either. So I'm going to say at the moment in Ripple, these fib levels aren't really helping, and I'm going to look at retrace levels. I will say that it looks to me from the low that we made on the 5th of July that we have done 5 waves up. Whenever you do 5 waves up, your most likely pullback is to the bottom of the previous swing low, wave 4 within this, so here. So that gives us 0.52 as the likely place that we come back to. So 5 waves up, 3 waves back to 0.52 would be where I would be looking for next in Ripple, based on nothing else. So pull back into these moving averages, see if we find support, and then I think we see another swing higher. And I am really encouraged by the fact that this looks like 5 waves up, and so 3 waves back here would be a really good pullback. If we look at this on a lower time frame, you remember it's going to be 3 waves. So I think this is one, I don't know how it's going to unfold exactly, but that's how I think it, and that's where I would be looking at if you would like to jump in on Ripple. And if we come back more than that, I think that we have to say, especially if we close the week underneath all of these, back underneath all of these weekly moving averages, I would be waiting for a better bottoming pattern look to buy. You could see if we did this on the weekly, this would put us back underneath this weekly 20 moving average, and we could be looking for a better, bigger bottoming pattern in that case. Okay, so that's how I see Ripple. I think I'm pretty encouraged. Would really like to see 0.52 hold on a pullback, and I would really like to see a nice corrective 3-wave pattern. So what about other alts and let's take a look at Total 3, which is, this is the crypto market excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And again, this is another chart which for me are really encouraging patterns. It looks very clearly since June of 2023 that this was 5 waves up and 3 waves back. But here we are in a big, just like Bitcoin, in a big corrective pattern and still in the middle, and it's not clear that we are finished or breaking out from this pattern. If we go down the time frame and we look at where we are, we kind of, not really quite, I think clearly if we break out or we go beyond 50% of this hole, we would be talking about a stronger move and people would jump in. But for now, this says that the whole of crypto, not just Bitcoin, not just ETH, is in a bigger corrective pattern, and it's a very bullish pattern. So don't get disheartened, just be patient, which is the hardest thing, of course. So let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. In fact, let's skip that for now. I think, whenever we break out of a long-term correction, it's always Bitcoin and the bigger blue chip alts that go first, and then the smaller ones that follow. So that's where we are. I've got a few requests and some charts that I like to look at that will give us a clear signal that we are going up again. So let's take a look at them. So first let's talk about, I've got 2 requests, BONK and AKT. So first off, BONK. I think these meme coins are really fun and they're really good to learn to trade. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of reasons why I like them. One is that you kind of don't, especially for the meme coins, you really don't need leverage to make pretty good money trading them. They trend very nicely. They also go sideways very nicely. And one thing about not having leverage I like is that you can make a lot of money without having to use stops or getting wiped out or liquidated. You know, as soon as you are trading something and you're using leverage, you can get your entire position liquidated. Whereas with these meme coins, you can afford to be a bit more patient and learn discipline, because, you know, if you buy 20 BONK or whatever you bought, you've got 20 BONK forever. You're never going to get your position eliminated, and you can afford to wait and learn some patience and make money. Whereas when you get liquidated, once you're out, you're out. So I kind of like meme coins, and you kind of need to have that attitude. So you cannot go all in one expecting that's going to be the one that's going to change your life. You need to spread your risk and manage your risk accordingly. And so they are quite fun to trade for that reason. Now BONK, let's talk about BONK and this big potentially three-wave correction that we've made here. I'm going to tidy my chart up. Either way you look at it, when we look at this daily chart, we can see that we are very much in a position like we were here, where flat moving averages sideways. And if we look at the big kind of range that we're in, from the all-time lows to highs in BONK, we're kind of right here in the middle. This, where we just got rejected, is the 50% right here in the middle. And this is kind of like a big pivot level, this 50% all-time lows to highs. So it's kind of acted before whenever we come back to it as a really kind of tough support and resistance. I like how, just like we did here when we did this in April and May, we were above our daily moving averages and they became support for us to eventually break out above it. But you know, like so many of these markets, we have to say that this is really, it's a big consolidation, and we are kind of tightening up our range here. And when you're in the middle, you have to trade really carefully. So for me, clearly, if we hold above 28.67, I'm going to be buying pullbacks and looking for this top of the range. And now whilst we stay underneath it, I think we could be in for a little bit of a bumpy ride. I like this double bottom. I like how we are kind of building up for a bigger move higher, hopefully. But we could also argue that we have done 5 waves up, choppy overlapping start maybe. And so it's not quite clearly bullish yet. Short term, on terms of daily candlesticks, the candle that we made yesterday is a bearish reversal. We made a new high. It's called dark cloud cover. And so when you make a new high and then you close more than 50% down of the preceding green candle, it's a bearish candlestick. So 50% back of this candle, which is where we've tested so far today, says potentially we see a bigger pullback here. And again, I'm going to go from this whole swing and from this lows, there we go. We're sideways at this 236 fib. We could see a bigger pullback here if we lose the lows of this consolidation. There's kind of a support and resistance level here. I think we will likely come back to the middle of this range if we lose it. At the moment we're sideways, but we will come back and test these daily moving averages, maybe close to the 2,500 if we break down here. If we look at this on a lower time frame, you can see the support and resistance levels a little bit more clearly. Underneath 2660, we are likely to come back towards 2400 in a bigger correction. So BONK, yeah, got really tough resistance above 2867. I think we could really fly, but this pivot level through the middle is really tough, and it could end up being a bigger pullback before higher. Let's talk about AKT. Okay. Now, when I look at this on a weekly, for me, this is a textbook. When you get, when you're in an uptrend, you ride above your moving averages, go higher. When you're in a downtrend, you get underneath them, they become resistance. And when you're in between, you're in no man's land. So this is another one in no man's land for me. I think that there are bullish possibilities with this. I think this has made potentially a nice 3-wave pattern, but we're not going to be going up until we break out of this sideways range, or break these highs, or break above this daily 200 moving average. So far, we've got a double bottom here and a nasty, unfortunate sideways range. We go back and see where that weekly 20 moving average is. We are underneath it. So much of crypto is in the same position. Nasty sideways ranges. I would be bullish back above, and I think that we could end up seeing a bigger pullback underneath it. And in between, you know, when you've got these sideways ranges like this, you really have to sell the highs, buy the lows, and wait for a breakout. Do the big fibs help us with this one? All-time lows to all-time highs. Look at this. This is textbook now, isn't it? Because this is a bounce from a 61.8. This 50%, if we tighten it up here on closes, this 50% level in the middle at 36, a weekly close above that will give us some run up to 4.45, which is the 38.2, whilst we stay underneath this 50% level. Unfortunately, tone's still bearish and the risk is we still continue lower. And so again, we could get up here and then we would look for this level to be support if we're going to make a bottom. So Akash, AKT, I'm afraid, sideways range, nasty sideways range. There are some charts that I'm looking at that are really big levels. So, you know, when we look at this, we can say, right, at close above on a weekly 3.64 instead of up here would be bullish. If we look at it on the daily, it's really bunched up, these moving averages that are flat and sideways. So really we need a breakout of this little sideways range we're in for a decent move. Okay, let's look at some of the charts I'm watching. So resistance. So when I look at Lido Finance, I really do like this kind of support level that we found. Previous swing low, opening previous swing low. We've got a double bottom, triple bottom retest. If I draw this as a parallel channel, so I connect this first high here to this second high here, we get a third touch false breakout and I project it from the bottom. We're doing the same on the bottom. Are we going to go higher here again then in this channel that we have been in? For me, as you know, the first sign is a 236 fib. We're on a weekly chart here, and that's what's holding this down. And so that is 2.02. And whenever you are trading a bounce, like a low from here, that 236 fib is always got to be your first target. Daily 50 moving average, as you know, is really strong medicine, and in this case, support, resistance, resistance, support. So there's a bunch of resistance here. So if we're going to do something bullish, what I'd like to see here in this one is like an inverted head and shoulders pattern, or just back to this daily 20 moving average and turn higher again. That would be kind of really bullish. But if we don't, and if we come all the way back to the lows, we are not going up. So back, I'm watching this one, and if you have been like me, this is a place where potentially we could see a little bit of a bearish reversal. So I've sold some. Now, if we don't have a bearish reversal here, if we were to close above this level, that's simple. I'm going to buy it back, and I'm going to buy pullbacks for bigger moves. So for me, the rule is if you close above a 236 fib, usually I'm going to go, you confirm it, 38.2, 50%, and we go fib level to fib level to fib level. So at important resistance in LDO, there's quite a few that are doing very similar patterns on that are at resistance. AAVE is one that's been outperforming like Ripple. Let's take everything off. Go back to regular candlesticks. So for me, this one made a very nice double bottom here. So I'm thinking, 3 waves back, double bottom, very nice. Are we going to go higher from here? And last week's candlestick was a really bullish move. So now I'm looking to see, are we going to pull back into this and continue higher? We haven't got to the top of the range yet. But if we go down to the daily, this has got above, like this is the whole big swing that we're inside of. We are above this 236 fib. These fibs aren't really working for me. So I'm looking for this one to see if we can see a bullish reversal on the lower time frame and continue higher to the top of this range. And when I go down to the 4-hour, here it looks to me like we've made a very nice 3-wave correction. Pull back to this 4-hour 50 moving average. I've got my Heikin-Ashi on, and I'm waiting for this to set up and give me a 4-hour buy and continue higher with a 5th wave in AAVE. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to look for the top of this range and signs that the bottom is in. The danger level in AAVE for this 4-hour buy is going to be the equal measured move level, which is up here at 116. So the rules, you know, when you do this equal measured move, sometimes the third swing is only 61.8 of the first swing, as you know, so this is here. And so this is 99, that level that I'm looking to hold as support. I don't want to get stuck underneath it. If I don't get a buy signal and it continues lower, this trade idea is off. But if we can continue higher, I'm looking for 116 next and hopefully beyond it and a bigger bottom. The holding above the daily 200 moving average here would be, and continuing higher would be a pretty nice bullish signal for me. When I look at the weekly, our weekly moving averages are bunched up. We've done the double bottom. I'm ready for this one to go up again. So AAVE is one of the ones that are on my radar that I'm trading. What about meme coins? Because you know I've had quite a lot of fun with them. Let's take a look at Doge, because Doge is quite a good. Doge and WIF are quite, and MOG have been quite good leading indicators. So big picture in Doge, we've got a problem here. Like, this is a great place to bounce from, isn't it? The weekly 200 moving average. All of the moving averages pulled back. Looks like a very nice 3-wave correction. We should be ready to kind of go. Let me tidy up my chart here. Just getting a green Heikin-Ashi, and here we are sideways at this weekly 200 moving average. So I am already quite excited. Is this correction over? I'm going to take just this most recent swing in terms of fib levels. It looks pretty strong. But when I go from the high, here we are sideways at this big important 236 fib. So holding above 0.1248 on a close is going to be my signal that we are going up in Doge, and we're struggling with it at the moment. So 0.1248, let's not bother drawing it, let's go down. And we can see that that's also the daily 200 moving average. So we've got flat sideways moving averages, no trend, and close above, and closing and hold above 0.1248 would be our bullish signal that we are going up in this one. And again, we could see some sideways price action in Doge, maybe build a head and shoulders pattern, and then that would be my sign. So this one for me is not clearly showing it. What about Pepe, which has been a massive outperformer? This one is off to the races. Let's take everything off. Lovely. So here we saw a textbook 3-wave correction, big swing. Here we've seen a very nice 3-wave correction. We're on our way up again. How do I know we're on our way up again? How do I tell? Well, let's tidy up my chart. First off, this is one of those corrections where this swing was, the second swing was 61.8 of the first swing. I thought that there was room for this to go lower, but if we put our fibs on then from this high to low, we need to watch out here because we've got above the 236 fib and we've paused at the 50% level. Mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. So a bigger reversal here, or if we get back underneath these moving averages, this is another one where we could see a bigger 50% pullback from this low and an inverted head and shoulders pattern, which is bullish. So from this low to this high, we are sitting very tidily on this 236 fib retrace level at 1165. If we break back underneath it, then we're going to look for a 50% pullback, which would be down to 1026 to buy on, and looking for a buy signal here to be going up again. And we could argue that maybe we've got that 5 rows up and looking for a much bigger swing. So Little bit stuck here, sideways. Watch out that we don't close underneath here and we see that bigger pullback to 1026 in Pepe. MOG is another one. Now, whenever this is such a typical crypto pattern, false breakouts can be quite nasty bearish reversal signals. In this chart, we had this lovely double top here. Let's look at it. We had a double top here back in beginning of the month, beginning of July, and we have just retested it with a false breakout and we're back underneath this level. This is a very common crypto pattern. They'll push the market up here. So I have to say that this one for me is a little bit of a warning, and I think you need to protect your profits because we could see a bigger pullback here as well. So is this a good place to buy? Not yet. This is actually a good place to hang on to your profits and watch out that we don't see a bigger pullback. So that 236 fib that I talked about that I'm watching at, that's a very common pattern for more upside. So there's some, we see this, I see this a lot across the board. For example, here's BCH. Somebody asked me about weekly flat moving averages going sideways. Looks like a textbook 3-wave correction, doesn't it? How do we know that we are going higher in BCH? If I put my fib on from this high to low, remember when you have 3 waves, you put your fib on that. We have to see, we need a close here then above 389. That is a daily and weekly close above 389 is our bullish reversal. A bullish pattern here would be a very nice inverted head and shoulders pattern. That's what we'd be looking for. If we don't and we continue lower and we don't kind of do that, this is the halfway back where we would be looking for. Let's tally up here. So the best head and shoulders patterns have kind of balanced look, right and left. So that would be a bullish pattern. But if you are more cautious and you want to make sure this is actually going up, then above that 389 level and a close above is what you want to see in BCH. This pattern really is across the board everywhere. So what else have I seen it in? So Tau is another one that I'm looking for a bottom in. I want to see that above the 236 fib from this high to low, which means above 334 we should see strong moves upside, 419 and so on. Watch out, people don't spike those levels and do false breakouts. Let's see a few more. So KHAI is another one that I have been trading, a little tiny meme coin. If we take the most recent swing in this one, so I had 2 targets on for a low here. So this is the most recent swing lower. The 236 here is 0.449. At above 0.449, I'm going to cancel this and say this big all-time high to low. 236 fib is my next target at 0.599. So, you know, did we make a really nice bounce here? Yeah, but that 0.449 is key support and resistance. And then above it, 0.599, I think we see next. And this is one of those levels where I think we could see a little bit of a pullback before we go higher, especially with this swing. I think we potentially have got 5 waves. And so I would like to see these 4-hour moving averages become support, or this hourly 20 to keep going higher. So that's how I use the 236 fib as the first target, and then above it for a bigger move. Good luck. Those are my thoughts at the moment. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, let me know. Don't get chopped up in these sideways moves. Honestly, it's too easy for your emotions and everything else to get chopped up with these sideways moves.